like kind of like you're doing with EMF Warriors for the EMF world, try to get the whole quantum health picture into something that people could get it, like a book, some kind of, video series, so that it could really impact people. And the key, as we both know, is people want to see the results. So in a way that allows people to see the results most quickly, that could be huge. And, again, you got to ask ourselves, what's the goal we're working towards? Is it just towards greater public awareness so that people eventually are in a large enough number so that we demand policy changes, so that the corrupt politicians that take people's money and use it to kill people in foreign countries would maybe stop irradiating the populace with toxic frequencies, making it mandatory? I mean, this is a great goal.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's going to have to be like the cigarette smoking issue. Like, people are going to need to know that instead of real smog or smoke, they're getting electrosmog or electrosmoke.
Yeah.
And it's having in all kinds of, from the epidemiology all the way down into the oxidative stress of the cell, like we're talking about at the cell membranes, even in the mitochondria, the inner and outer membrane, that these frequencies can have an influence even down at those levels. And this is in combination, it's like this, I'm viewing EMFs as this, more recently, nice with your cornet. I'm viewing EMFs more recently and trying to message it this way to people, that it really has this synergistic effect. Like, I'm sure there are certain frequencies that are, they have different, every frequency up the EMF spectrum will have a different just natural quality to it. Some are more penetrative and get deeper into tissues, which can have a deeper influence. There's information writing on this with different weird choppy parts of the wavelengths that are coming in, where, the waveform is less of a sine wave. It's more chopped up and more jagged. And like that can have an influence on your body in all these ways. Like, all the science needs to start being done, like setting up controls, not just for like, I'm going to give you a nice frequency at, 850 megahertz, and this is a nice sine wave. But in reality, when we're getting hit with these frequencies in real life, there's information on it. It's not this nice smooth sine wave. It might also, we're being hit with this other frequency, and the convergence of these frequencies in combination in this environment, I'm getting hit with 850 here, getting hit with, 20 gigahertz here, I'm getting hit with this here, in this environment in combination, and how everything's coming together. It's like a really hard dilemma for knowing the biological impacts. Like, all of our studies across the board, even the latest toxicology study, they're measuring one frequency, saying it can have cancerous and problem effects on the biology of a rat or a mouse. And it's one frequency. But in reality, we're not just being hit with one frequency. It's a real problem. We're like in the soup, right? And everyone's in different soup. And it's not just the higher frequencies I'm talking about either. It's like, some people literally, I've measured in homes, their beds are pulsing magnetic and electric fields because they happen to have their bed plugged into the back because the bed could rise or lower. Like, I've measured all kinds of problems where, just like a lamp, like the electric field that could be plugged into your wall next to your lamp, that shielding on that cord could be so bad, and the lamp goes right next to your head, about a foot away from your head. You could be in a 2 or 3 milligauss field or even higher of an electric field, sleeping in it all night. And that with your smart meter on your wall, that with the cell phone tower 3/4 mile away, that with, just like, you start adding up everything going on now since we created the electric grid, and then everything coming off of it with all the higher frequencies, this is a huge issue that is just being buried in the public eye.
Absolutely. Andrew Marino, first of all, I'm so glad you had him on your show. I think the fact that you've spoken with him
was amazing. Yeah.
Oh my gosh. I want to talk with him so much. I got to get you to put me in contact with him somehow. I've emailed him, so I could probably get something to work out. But, when I was in abroad 2 years ago now, I was on a foreign exchange program. I was had just started to learn about all this optimal stuff. I had struggled a lot with diet stuff for about a year and a half prior to that exchange program, which was my 11th grade year of high school. Like the prior 2 years or 1.5 years of school, I was getting into diet stuff to try to fix health issues of mine. Basically, like my story in a simplified version is I was not feeling well, headaches, gut issues, and so on. And these kind of just got me going. Actually, it was acne that I had that made me, vanity, of course, made me actually want to look for some solution. And I learned all about like leaky gut syndrome, damaged guts, because I thought maybe that's how the oil from the food was getting to my face and causing these breakouts, because that's what someone had told me, like my mom had told me that could happen. So
like the tight electrical junctions.
Yeah,
right?
well, exactly. So I thought my gut was damaged and blah, blah, blah. Learned about the paleo diet, and I had been a vegetarian for 7 years. I got super into the paleo diet, and I was doing all ketosis and stuff, and I felt great at first, cutting out all the crap food, like literally literally ton deuterium bombs every day of just vegetable oils and grains, and sugar was the way I built myself for 14 years. And then, especially being a vegetarian, I was never eating deuterium depleted or any kind of like healthy high electron food, like meat or fish. I was a vegetarian because when I was younger, thankfully I ate salmon and stuff like that. But around 7, I had a horrible experience with like a factory farmed bun covered in high fructose corn syrup ketchup, or factory farmed hot dog. So of course that it's kind of just like, it's separate, but just like one would, from that toxicology program study, say that one frequency you can't make a judgment based on one single frequency.
Right.
Same thing. Like I couldn't make a judgment of all animal products based on a single disgusting factory farmed hot dog covered in high fructose ketchup, but I did. And anyway, though, it's all good because it brought me to where I am now. After the paleo diet wasn't working, Dr. Cruz was just kind of like the next step. And the CT was what interested me, just because it seemed like a superhuman power. And I was like, I want to have that. I want to be able to get into ice water and like radiate heat. That's so cool. That, to me, I literally saw it like being a superhuman, like a special power. And that was just so cool because I was like 15 years old. And then so I pursued that. But then I started to understand all of the bigger implications. And then I was reading the books while I was abroad on this foreign exchange program. And one of the books was Marino's book. And when I read that, and he called for some brave warrior who understands science and law, at the end of the book, he calls for like a brave warrior to advance the field of this environmental science is what he called it. Or no, it was, environmental science, I think. I was like, oh, that's me. I'm going to do that. I'm definitely going to do that. So I took that as my goal in a way. I was thinking about being a lawyer. When I first went to Mexico and met Jack, he was like, you should be a lawyer. And then I just kind of realized I don't want to spend 4 + 3 years in college just like being blasted by 5G coming in. Nah, that's not what I want to do. I'll just try my best, like everyone, like a lot of us are, trying to understand the issues and then put it out on a plate so that all the bloodthirsty lawyers could go out and take the stuff from there. Kind of like, I still haven't seen the Aaron Brockovich movie. I really should watch that one, but because I think it's very similar, the kind of subject matter. However, what I am aware of, if I'm not mistaken, please correct me, she wasn't a lawyer herself. She was a legal clerk in the law office, and she kind of put the case together, but she wasn't, as someone who doesn't have the power of attorney, she couldn't actually be the lawyer. So it's not like someone needs to be the lawyer necessarily to make it all work.
Yeah.
At least that's how I understood it. So that's kind of what drove me to get like totally into it. And something else that came to my mind from what you were talking about, I don't exactly remember what it was that brought this up, but have you heard of the EMF refugee Facebook group?
Yes, I know about them.
Email group, actually. So someone for some reason added me to that, probably someone from the quantum group. And I just started getting all these emails, and I had to unsubscribe because it was just too many. I couldn't read it all. But for a while, I was like, these people are I see these emails about people just trying to run away from EMFs. It was what you were saying about how we're just getting bombarded. I was thinking to myself, well, yeah, we should get away, obviously, and try to do what we can to fix, the issues societally. But as long as that's not happening, I think the best method also, in addition to avoidance, is strengthening our own ability to resist it. And some people, it might not work for everyone. You might not be able to strengthen it. But for example, you've probably heard Jack talk about the story of Sarah Hodgson from the UK who went to Mexico. 3 days later, her electrosensitivity was like gone.
Right.
And I try to share this story with these people, like tell them I saw it with my own eyes, but in their brains, it just couldn't register that was possible. It was just like impossible, because these people live in this world of this is the understanding, and there's nothing like, they know that that's true. And I might be the same way with the stuff I think I understand. I might be closed-minded to other stuff, but so trying to propose the idea of, in addition to getting away from EMFs, why not work on strengthening your redox? Because none of these people are focused on the effects of blue light and, how they're avoiding sunlight and how that's killing their redox. Ultimately, some people, like Dr. Cruz, might even argue the cause of the electrosensitivity, having such a lowered redox. And I don't know exactly all the details on that note, but anyway, it's definitely not helpful, right? So if people could just get this idea out there, I think that would be great, that we can also do stuff in addition to avoidance. However, long-term with 5G and stuff, strengthening ourselves might not be enough. Yeah, we're going to have to get away from it.
Yeah, it's going to have to come down to a point where there's going to be an Aaron Brockovich of EMFs. There will be, and I don't think it's going to be just an Aaron Brockovich. I think it's going to be like 100+ entertainers, actors, musicians, scientists. Like, it's going to snowball, and it's going to snowball probably in the next year or two here, where it's going to get out into the mainstream, because the genie's out of the bottle, like the Pandora's box has been opened. Like, however you look at it, too many people know about this issue now. and it is tragic to think, people with electrosensitivities like myself, or other people that I know in my life that have had EHS, and people now, a lot of people at EMF Warriors, there's a lot of people there that have joined us that have EHS, and you're right, they're looking to flee. They want to get out of the way, but that's not the long-term solution. That's not going to, if we proceed at this rate, 10, 15 years from now, you will not be able to escape it. And then it's just a matter of you just, even going to the beach, on Cancun or something like that, where I've been down to Mexico a lot too. I'm Chichen Itza and everywhere. Yeah. So I would imagine even places like a remote place like Chichen Itza is going to have radio towers, all kinds of stuff in any hub where a population is going to go for tourism, all this. Because if the whole world's going to go wireless, then it is going to basically be inescapable unless you know what to do to mitigate. But then mitigation is only going to go so far, because you have to have the finances to even afford something, right? Like to have a home or have a property way far away. And that's why, as Myster Spock, I've written all the blogs over the last year at EMF Warriors. And I wrote one, saying, in the future, what's going to happen, we have to really project this into the future. If we progress on our current rate with wireless, and, 10, 20 years from now, everyone's going to have exposure. But then 100 years from now, right? What is the world going to look like 100 years from now, if even in the next 10 or 20 years, this thing rolls out everywhere? People literally be living with antennas and emitters and everything around them in their home environments. If you want to go over and visit a friend, I want to just chat and have fun time with a friend, you go into their house, and if they don't know about the EMF issue, it's going to be saturated. And
to me, those people, for me, those people probably won't be friends. You know what I mean? On one hand,
it's sad. Yeah.
It is kind of sad, but at the same time, to me, it's just, I'm starting to accept it. As an 18-year-old right now, looking towards the future. I mean, most people in the quantum community already have a home, have a family, have some kind of setup. There's a lot of people who are college students and stuff. very few who are like 18. So on one hand, I'm super lucky because I'm mobile, right? I could go to South America. I can flee. I can go wherever I want. But I'm thinking about, like, I don't want to just be fleeing my whole life. I want to find a community too. I want to settle down. Even just after 5 months of traveling, I want to settle down already and just kind of plant my feet somewhere. But it's tough because this has actually been the kind of thing I've been thinking about and wondering about for the last 2 weeks since I came home. I was in Mexico. I was in Cuba for a week. Talk about no Wi-Fi. That was awesome. But seriously, like, no Wi-Fi, terrible cell service. Literally couldn't get Wi-Fi unless you went to like a public park or a hotel hotspot and you had to pay for a card that had a code on it. It's pretty interesting. But at the same time, though, I don't know, like, I guess people must have some cellular data or something, because we would walk, my friend and I would walk on the streets in the evening, and on these like old rundown Spanish looking streets with like cars kind of sparse, just like beaten down, but it was all that Spanish architecture. Yeah, there's not a ton of cars parked on the side of the streets. It's like Cuba. There's dirt in the roads. I mean, they're paved roads, but with dirt and glass and trash, piles of trash in places. And people are just sitting on their phones, like by the dozens along their houses. Like, people aren't talking. They're just on their phones. And me and my friend were looking at it like a disease. It was insane. My best friends, thankfully, from growing up where I live, after enough time of being around me, when I got home from Bosnia, where I was on the exchange, and they saw the transformation in me, they were like, whoa, what are you doing? And as soon as I started to explain it over time, they believed it because they saw it in me. Before I left, they wouldn't have any of it. When I came back and they saw how I changed, they were like, I want a piece of that. Like, I want to know this stuff. So my friends, thankfully, they understand, luckily, that I have open-minded, receptive friends. They get this stuff. And, but yeah, I'm trying to figure out, like, where am I going to settle down? What am I going to do? I want to be around people my age. I want to be around girls my age, right? But everyone, at least in the US, they're at universities. I mean, I'm not going to go to Africa, just kind of off the map. Europe, I could go to Europe. The EMF issue is less bad there, but it's also increasingly worse. Asia, forget it. Australia, probably not much better than the States. South America and Central America are great. So cool. I could go find some like local Ecuadorians. I've hung out in places like that for a little while, met cool locals and stuff, and even some travelers here or there. But the thing is, it's kind of like these people just we don't come from the same background, right? They're in a mindset where they're just going to stay in their town where they were born and raised their whole life, and that's it, right? They don't have much financial opportunity. So it's like, I kind of want to be around people from my kind of similar background, just so that, or at least just people from a similar culture, right? Because then these are the people who are interested in traveling, people who are interested maybe in these kinds of cool ideas. Like the average South Central American, they just wouldn't care about this kind of health-related stuff, although a lot of North Americans just like are maybe interested, maybe not most kids, but some people, right? So just like the few friends I had from high school, a lot of them kind of picked up on this stuff. They kind of got it, right? So I have a feeling if I were to go to university, same thing might happen. But this is what Dr. Cruz had told me when I asked him about it a few days ago. And he even posted something on the forum, which was really a funny, kind of not funny, but a unexpected coincidence. He basically told me when I asked him about universities, like, is there anywhere that's good? Is there anywhere that's even decent? Where I could try to, I'm not going to enroll because I'm running a business and stuff, but I want to be in the town, meet some people, make some connections. I asked about, for example, like schools I thought might be better environments because they're not big cities, like UC Boulder, Fort Collins, Colorado, Colorado Springs, Colorado College down there. Something like Santa Barbara, it's EMF ton. There's loads of EMF, but it's on the beach in the sun. So like I kind of, charge myself up. But the consistent answer is that, these towns are like 5G cesspools. And I'm beginning to see it when this woman the other day posted a post in the forum about how her daughter was sick, and then she left high school to get out of the environment. She started getting better. She went back to college, and her mom's writing she's having all these weird breakouts and reactions and getting all sick again. Like, I mean, yeah, it's the EMFs. There's tons of fake light, but the EMFs are huge there. And I'm just like, fuck, it's true. So it's almost like I want to be around people my age. Or do I want to, but it comes with a ton of EMF. It's kind of like I have to pick one or the other, kind of be on my own, isolated, hanging around with adults mostly who kind of get this stuff, You know what I mean? It's like an interesting situation, but the world is actually coming to this place where it's like, you know, what do I do?
So everything you're saying is absolutely on the mark. Like I have a 9-year-old son, and I think about 10 years from now where he's going to be like in the same situation. And of course the situation will be even this much ramped up, right? Compared to what it is even at this moment in time. But like everything you're saying is just like on the mark. You shouldn't have to deal with this. Your entire generation shouldn't have to deal with this.
Yeah.
We would be making safer technologies that would put us out of the exposure of this stuff. Like if we had better designers, this is like a social design question for the whole world. Like we need people to think about where we're pulsing this frequencies, having people more aware of it. Like I was thinking about this like even 5 years ago. Like I would love to walk down near a cell phone tower and see signs that say beyond this point is a really strong saturation point. You know, just letting you know that you're just being flooded with like 20 milliwatts per square meter, even within 200 meters of that tower, right? And like where the towers are even designed, and where they're like, some of these towers are put on hills where there's apartment complexes like literally straight out from that tower, right?
Yeah, dude.
Nobody cares. Like these people are probably being just saturated all day, all night long in really close proximity to some of the wireless. But now it's going to be way more common in the world 10 years from now.
Yeah.
Not just like this little pocket of people being completely bombarded, but now on every corner, all through, everyone's using these gadgets in the home.
Dude.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
So like, I think this
everywhere.
History is our friend. Like, I think, and like we have like recorded documentation, luckily from Hollywood, from the 1900s through about the 1940s, where we had no wireless in the air. You know, in the 1950s is when microwaves started coming in. In the 60s is when all the microwave testing was happening through the military and everything else. So like, I like to look back and think about how humans used to interact. We have it on film, like any movie from like the 1920s or 30s, you can go on TCM and watch a movie, and you suddenly get like this weird reflection of how much radically our society has changed. And like what you're saying, like people would come from all across the world, different places. They'd be very mobile. They'd go around, even way back then, even 100 years ago. They'd be going to different countries. They'd be saying, oh, I'm going to have relationships with these people over here. You know, there's a lot of flow of people even back then. And we had no wireless devices in our hand. Like they would make a point to like go to different, you know, locations to still keep up relationships with people. And it was really, I mean, isn't it more meaningful to actually be there in person with somebody?
Absolutely.
Versus what right now, it's like, okay, I've got this like device and I'm communicating with you. It's like we're creating this world of disconnection rather than
just like the Matrix. It's just
it's crazy. It's getting crazy.
Lose their humanity slowly and slowly. It's just so funny how it's actually happening, and it's anyone can see it anytime you go into an airport and everyone's on their phones. I mean, I'm on my phone too. Sometimes, you know what? Actually, that's not true. I sit in airports and I start talking with old ladies next to me for 2 hours. Like, I mean, it's pretty fun. I learn a lot. Two things that come to mind immediately. One, do you know how much cell companies pay people for having a tower on their property?
I know like they pay businesses. I'm not sure for individuals. I'm sure it's
businesses. But so I actually was going to my mechanic to get my car fixed up because it was sitting for the last 4 months since sitting for 4 months since I was traveling, right? So it had some work it needed done, and my mechanic got a new place. For some reason, I don't know why, maybe it has something to do with these high voltage transmission lines. His last place and his new place where he moved to are both like right next to high voltage transmission lines. And I think people can feel that the energy there is crap. It's like where the gas stations are in the rundown corner of town. The energy there is just crap. And so that real estate's worth very cheap, and that's why mechanics pick it generally. But then this next place doesn't just have a high voltage line literally going like right over it, 50 feet to the side, but it also had, and high voltage lines often go over train tracks, I guess, because they're convenient right of ways through highly populated, densely populated areas. And it's interesting that simply because of Andrew Marino and the legal cases that he went through that one can read about in Going Somewhere, like if it weren't for him, they would literally be building power lines over houses. But they at least, because of his, I mean, he at least got it so that they can't build them right over houses, but they build them over a right of way. But he was saying the right of way should have a mile or something on each side,
right.
you know, but they're building it right over train tracks that literally go through people's backyards. So it's really not much better. However, and then there's a cell tower on the guy's property. And as I was walking out, I was like, hey, Sean, you know what? Do you mind if I ask you? I always wondered, do they pay you to have that thing there? I knew that obviously they do. I want to know how much. And he said, dude, you wouldn't believe it. They pay 25 grand per month. So they're paying like, and just to him, $300 and something thousand per year, like a great salary just to have that cell tower on their property. But it was less. And then they had all these trucks in one day, and his dad, he's like, my dad was smart. He didn't sign the lease or anything. I mean, obviously they just don't know what they don't know, but he's like, my dad was smart. He didn't sign the lease or anything. So he said, you know what, get out. Like, you guys get out, because they were blocking them off with trucks and stuff. And they're like, all right, we'll pay you double. So they doubled it or something. But they probably pay some people who have any resistance, I don't know, $1 million per year or $500,000 per year. I mean, if they could pay in this, it's like southwest Philadelphia. I don't even know what part of Philly. And it's densely populated. This tower is servicing hundreds of people probably. That's a lot of money that they're making off those people. Anyway, though, it's just crazy that they can pay that much money for people to get it done.
It makes pharmaceutical companies look pretty skimpy, doesn't it?
Yeah, really.
Right? I mean, like if you just follow the money, it's like our entire infrastructure, our entire society is based on the power grid and based on all the telecoms and everything else now with all the wireless. So if you look at the flow of money, anybody can go up on Market Watch or any financial website and see the amount of money companies earn, and you can compare like all the pharmaceuticals in a big pool compared to like all of the power and telecoms in a big pool, and you have your answer, right?
Have you done that before, actually?
Well, yeah. I mean, like it is what it is, and
what are the numbers? I've never done that myself.
I don't know the exact numbers now, but it's growing. Like telecoms are just even growing more and more. I mean, it's really easy. Like you sit down and a perfect event is like the Super Bowl. Look at the number of ads that came from telecom companies or telecoms, right? Yeah. Versus yeah, exactly. Versus the like other companies like in a prime time where there's the most exposure that marketers will believe that the public will be watching these ads.
Genius. I know. I totally get it. When I went to Bosnia, I just didn't watch TV for a year. Like, I used to watch TV a lot growing up. When I got into this health stuff, I just stopped. And then I started while I was traveling. I wasn't watching TV because my host parents had a TV, but it was all in Serbian or Bosnian, same language essentially, where I was. And I just didn't watch it for a year. And then also I was reading books. Like, I think a critical book for anyone, speaking of finances, getting away from EMFs, critical book for anyone and now is the 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, who is by no means like helping the issue as an investor in the tech world. However, his book, The 4-Hour Workweek, is all about how to like basically, I mean, it's nothing special. It's nothing like people couldn't figure out on their own, but it really puts the idea of starting your own business or taking the career you already have and figuring out with your boss, through experimentation and the system he kind of puts out that works for tons of people who have done it, to get it so that you can be completely mobile and you never have to go to your office. You do all your work from the beach in Costa Rica and you never have to go to your office, and you perform better because of the hacks that he suggests, things like the 80-20 principles. It's genius. And that was what, as soon as I read that, ever since then I was thinking, I need to start a business, need to find that niche that he talks about, to find that idea. And, I never thought blue blocking glasses would be something I would start a business doing, because like other people were already doing it. It'd be so difficult. I wouldn't know how to do it, but it just kind of happened and it wasn't that hard. And I've made connects in the glasses industry. Like, this business is only going to explode. I mean, I see it as blue blocking stuff, like we've talked about, it's only going to get more and more popular. And I want to like totally lead the charge. I mean, I'll be separate from the business. I myself, as Matt Maruca, will always be sharing information and putting it out there, even if one business fails or this or that. So just to have a brand that I can kind of carry with me. So when people kind of maybe they trust me because I'm putting out good information. I'm genuine. I know what I'm talking about in general. So people would rather maybe purchase from me or someone else. But anyway, like I've gotten myself to a situation where I'm grateful I'm mobile. I mean, it might not last. I have to make the business bigger and more stable. It's just growing right now. But the point is like I think that's huge, because if someone's really, really, really electrosensitive and they have to move, like that's your best option is to go mobile. Even Dr. Cruz says he thinks the best move for young people today, even for anyone, is to get an internet business or something that you can do from anywhere. You use your Ethernet cable. Huge hack. This is the coolest hack ever. Well, first I'll say, when I came back from Bosnia, I started watching TV. Just didn't watch it. I'd walk through the living room while my family was watching it. And it was funny because I played a video game a few years before called Grand Theft Auto. You're probably familiar with it, right?
Oh, very much so, yes.
Oh, yeah. So you remember how on the radio, while you drive in a car, there would be this like crazy – there's a radio program that was just crazy. It was like insanity. It was, making fun of society. It was like, oh, today the president announced his divorce and marriage with, this celebrity or something. Like, it just total craziness. And then I came back and started listening to American TV and commercials and radio, and I was like, this is and the CNN and stuff, it's the same thing. It's literally like absurd. The way they talk, the stuff they talk about, it's just so absurd. But you have to go live in a foreign country for 10 months with no TV to really see it the way I see it, maybe. But anyway, and definitely huge trend I noticed right away. Pharmaceuticals, telecom, cars, and food are the 4 biggest shares of the advertisement business by far. Like, if anyone can contest that, if you have any other things that I'm missing, but those 4 were like car commercials, food commercials, telecom, you see Verizon, AT&T, and yeah, you see drugs like every second commercial. So that
it wasn't that way, trust me, like 30 years ago.
Yeah.
It's like everything has changed about the society, and people feel that, and they don't, respond well to it anymore, like you're saying.
Yeah. And speaking of the Super Bowl, I mean, there was the Super Bowl. I saw your post about how they retrofitted the Minneapolis stadium with tons of cell towers and stuff. And then, obviously that's what it is. I mean, still, I'm an Eagles fan. Go Eagles. It's just so cool when they win, especially against the Patriots. But still, I mean, and with the backup quarterback, Nick Foles, like, come on, he's pretty cool. But anyway, I went to the probably like what was in the entire world the highest source of EMF exposure at that time, which was the Eagles Super Bowl parade in Philly afterwards. I mean, like, I was in a crowd with 3 million people around. Like, that's 1 million people more than the size of the city, the population of the city. I mean, someone should fact check those numbers. I heard someone say there was 3 million. It might have only been 1 or 2, but still, it's a lot of people with everyone with the bi-directional microwave antenna on them. Like, I mean, again, I'm not electrosensitive, so I don't run away from it. I went to the experience, which is also an experiment, involuntary human experimentation, which is like exactly what you were talking about, how people shouldn't have to deal with this stuff, like your son in 10 years, me right now, but that's just how the world is, right? So that's the interesting thing. Really cool hack I want to throw out before I forget it. Some people are probably already aware of it. If you're interested in running like a mobile internet business from somewhere, this woman who I mentioned earlier from the UK, whose electrosensitivity completely disappeared in 3 days in Mexico, even when Dr. Cruz predicted it would take 3 weeks, it was just 3 days. And I saw her holding her phone. I was like, isn't she electrosensitive? Like, why? That was just the first time I met her. Mm-hmm. But in the UK, she I think she lives in like a mobile home of some kind, so she can try to get away from a lot of this stuff. And to get internet connection, because she works off her computer, she takes her phone, uses it as a hotspot, which is obviously a huge source of EMF. It'll talk to the tower and to the computer, but she'll use the USB connection of the hotspot, and then she'll put it in like a waterproof bag or something, and she'll use a USB cable, like a female to male, so it can take the charger cable and then plug into the computer and provide that USB tethering, but she'll get like a 20-foot cable and put the phone outside of her window really far from her, and then use her computer with the Wi-Fi off. It's as if she has an Ethernet cable, and because that device is so far away, it's much weaker than, it's a great option. It's much weaker than if you were in a town with EMF around, but using Ethernet yourself or something like that. So she does it. It works for her. And then for me, what I found even better is I got one of these little things from Verizon called like a Jetpack, which is basically that same thing. It's like a personal Wi-Fi hotspot. And I bought some super long Ethernet cables or USB cables to tether that thing from the device to my computer. So I can put it in a waterproof bag and leave it somewhere, you know, off to the side.
Yeah.
Just waterproof bag so it doesn't get damaged, right? But and then I can use my computer with no internet and keep the thing 30 feet away from me. And I mean, like, that's golden. And the coolest thing is that, I mean, props to Verizon for doing this one thing, despite all the other terrible things and literally like mass murderers, really. But basically making it so that one could take a SIM card from any country in the world. So if someone is going to go do this mobile business and be anywhere, they could actually go anywhere in the world, which is a cool idea. And key is that Sarah, her name is, she recommended to put these things called ferrite beads. You're familiar with ferrite beads?
Ferrite cores, yeah.
Ferrite cores. Okay, yeah. I found them on Amazon. They were under the name of ferrite beads. Maybe they had both, but either way, people will find them. And she said to put these on the cable so that it there's no jump conduction from the radio frequencies on the cable.
Right.
So genius.
It's kind of like a smaller Stetzer or Greenwave filter a little bit.
Is it? Yeah.
It helps to reduce down the extra frequencies produced off it. Yeah.
Sweet.
So yeah, it's.
Say hello. Hi, Mom. This is my mom.
Hi.
Hi.
I'm so sorry.
No problem.
Oh, you're recording? I'm so sorry.
It's fine. This is my mom. She's the best. All good, Mom.
Okay, bye.
She has a note for me because I've got to go. I know, Mom. I'll see you soon.
She doesn't know she'll be all over the internet pretty soon.
Yeah, I know. I just won't tell her that part, but it doesn't matter. Right. But anyway, so yeah, in about like a half hour I've got to go. But anyway,
I gotta take off pretty soon here.
Yeah, you got to take off soon too. Anyway, but so this is just like super cool stuff, right? All these hacks people can do. The one thing that I think would kind of like make this have some closure for me, kind of encapsulate it off, is going back to like, you know, why are we having this conversation in the first place? Like, obviously we've never met, so it'd be cool to it's cool first time to meet and actually be putting out something really interesting. I figured this would be really cool. That's why I wanted us to even record it. But I mean, beyond just getting to know each other and meeting, like, we're both aware that there's an issue in society, right? And we both clearly aren't willing to just sit back and watch it unfold, because we both believe that our actual conscious actions to do something could actually help people, so that, like, you suffered with almost losing your vision, you know, with blood bleeding from your retina. And like, I just grew up feeling like shit. And then I see how my whole generation is really just toast. You know, I want to share the information. Like, I truly believe, some people say, oh, you can't wake people up, blah, blah, blah. You can't really help people. But after my experience at high school with some open-minded friends who like eventually caught on, that alone just makes me really want to go to colleges, to some university town. Just, again, maybe not enroll and take classes, but, you know, run my business or whatever, but meet people, make friends, make connections. Because not only will I'm not interested in like saving people necessarily. I mean, I want to have friends. I also don't want people to fall prey to this stuff. So in a way I am interested in saving, but it's not like saving. It's just like helping, spreading information that I believe other people should have. Same thing that, you know, anyone in history has done who cared about a cause, from the biggest to the smallest. So, you know, I think that's kind of what we're here trying to do. And for people, you know, there's always going to be people who will just hear something and they're like, oh, well, that's crazy. That's bullshit. There's no science behind that. And to those people, you know, they could go do whatever they want. I don't really particularly care, but for the people who are interested, the people who want to learn more, you know, that's why we're here. For example, if any of your listeners are interested, I do kind of like coaching or consulting, even just conversations with people to try to teach this information in a simplified form, like the actionable, applicable stuff. And that's kind of like, you know, that's what we're doing. So I think it's great. I think as long as we just keep it up and have fun and obviously take targeted steps. Like, I'm not here just about having fun. I've contacted lawyers. I went to my school board and told them about the Wi-Fi, and they basically did nothing. I went to my township and told them that they're basically like doing involuntary human experimentation, that because the FCC won't change, it should be their responsibility to defend the constituents of the township, but they're not doing anything, right? Like, I've gone around, and when I came home from Bosnia too, I started seeing the 5G antennas everywhere on top of telephone poles. I don't know if you've seen them. They're brown.
I know what they look like. I don't have any here in Oregon at this time.
Lucky
I
you.
know they're
They're everywhere in the Philadelphia and the Philadelphia suburbs. And literally anyone I talk with, no one notices they're there because they don't care. Because it's like, it's as if the internet and cell phone stuff just exists up in a cloud. But then when I was in Philly at the event, I saw these boxes that were not there before on the Benjamin Franklin Parkway, you know, where Rocky runs up the steps. And like literally every second telephone pole 30 feet from each other have a big brown box, you know, painted brown to match it. Totally a 5G tower. Like, I just knew they were not there before. They are 5G towers, just like the cylindrical ones on top of the telephone poles everywhere around here. I was in the Hamptons. They're in the Hamptons. New York City, they probably got them concealed a bit better, but maybe not. I haven't been there in the last year and a half, or maybe I have. But anyway, you get the idea.
Yeah, it's rolling in everywhere, especially in this next year from now till about 2020. We're just going to start seeing them everywhere. And this is like, you know, a lot of people we've had a lot of conversations on EMF Warriors about the same thing. Like, we're going to have a bunch of people, new people, that will come down with electrosensitivities because of this.
Yeah.
Because they're just going to have constant exposure. And there will probably be, I would say, like, once about like, instead of like 6 to 8% of the population, 6 to 8% of the population now that might have EHS or electrosensitivities, and they actually know they have it, because I'm sure the number's higher than that. And people just don't put two and two together that their exposure to their cell phone and microwave is causing their gut issue or their headaches or anything. Like there's so many different myriad of symptoms that can come out of this. And I think it will come up to a point where like about 1 out of every 5 people, about like the 15 to 20% range of the population, when they start feeling this, then it's going to be inescapable for society to hide it anymore. Because then, like, imagine this, 1 out of every 5 people is affected. Then they start realizing they're affected. That's like 1 person in every family pretty much will be affected. And it will, like, now there's going to be people in family, like a family will be like, this 1 person in my family is now affected by it. We think he's crazy because he's talking about these weird symptoms with, you know, but like it will become such a known thing at some point. Hopefully that will happen sooner than later, because if it happens like 10 years from now versus 5 years from now, or even the next couple of years, like, this is a huge dilemma that we're in, where we're trying to get the word out before this whole thing rolls out as well.
Yeah.
But
it's a mess. It's a huge mess.
It's a mess.
And you know, I want to end on a good note, but at the same time, like you said, which is very, very unsettling in a way to me, the fact that our entire economy is based on the power and the telecom industry now, largely. I mean, what does that really mean when this stuff comes out? Like when, for example, one of the guys, Dr. Cruz knows, who's a telecom executive, and I met in Mexico last year and this year, talks with his New York reporter guys about the data that's being gathered of these frequencies and the data and the way it relates to zip codes and stuff, of EMFs and stuff. And, you know, he talks to his New York Times reporter friends, and they start putting this stuff out, and people realize it. Like, most things, kind of like the tipping point of Malcolm Gladwell. I think a lot of things are quick tip. And I think this is going to be one that's going to be a pretty quick tip within the next 2 years to 3, maybe within the next 5 years for sure, but probably within the next 3, I guess. And what's going to happen, you know what I mean? Like, when so many people who live with this stuff, their job is based on it, everything, they live under a power line. Like, real estate prices are going to go nuts in some places and to shit in some places. Like, I think it's the recipe for a massive economic crash. Like a massive economic crash. And I've been talking with some really smart friends recently who seem to think that that's not only going to happen, but it's like a mathematical inevitability based on the rates of, you know, less people working today, more like government spending, just all these things. It's really unsettling. So I'm mostly concerned, honestly, with figuring out things for myself. And then, like, for example, with your son, I've always foreseen something like getting together a group of people, like you even mentioned, who are awake and who can you said like a community or something, like a sanctuary. I mean, these are the kind of things that I think are worth looking into, and investing in gold too, I think is a wise idea.
You absolutely you have so much wisdom, because it's exactly correct. Not only like the ripple effect in other industries outside of telecoms and real estate and all these things. Like if you think about just the pharmaceutical company, imagine if like even a fifth of the population learned they can use just nature to heal themselves. Suddenly the pharmaceutical industry is like, oh no, we're going to lose profits. And like
so many people lose jobs.
Yeah. It's everything is really tied to this now. And once the society awakens and discovers that they go back to nature, they heal themselves, they don't, they start living a slightly differently. That is going to be the tipping point. And also it really is going to be a paradigm shift. Like what you mentioned earlier, it's like people are living in the paradigm, and even people within the telecoms and all the companies still have the paradigm, and they're hoping that all the EMF isn't as much of an issue. They're hoping, but many of them that go to investigate and realize and go down into the science and start reading are like, oh man, we're gonna have some problems down the road.
I mean, I wish EMF weren't such an issue either, because then that would prevent potentially a impending massive economic collapse. I mean, so many people could lose jobs. Like people will lose jobs. So society will shift, and things might be difficult for a lot of people for a while. I mean, maybe not like the Great Depression, maybe worse. Who knows? I mean, and this is the kind of stuff that I could foresee. I mean, call me crazy, but I'm see the potential of things like the U.S. government not even being around in the form that it is right now by the time I pass away. In fact, I don't think it will. It's just, it's like things are changing. And I think my mom's generation, for example, like take for granted that their lifetime things were stable. But I think people, like, because their parents' generation was like World War II and all that stuff, let's just put that under the rug and act like that didn't really happen. Like the world isn't just like, oh, all fun and games. It seems to me, from what I'm getting, it's not like everything's guaranteed to be all set and good. And it might just be that we're getting towards another different period, maybe not a world war, but like a different kind of really big issue. And I mean, just we look around, you and I talking about it, like people are sick. Loads of people have cancer. It's already happening. You know what I mean? But when is it going to get bad enough that people are going to change? I don't know.
It's this time from now, like literally now in the next, like you're saying, 5 years, like people will start looking for answers because they're fed up with, they're not getting any answers from their doctors, no answers from their governments, no answers from anything. And then they'll turn to like, wait a minute, it's all of this synergy with, okay, our food supply's gone really bad. Whoa, we're being saturated in all these electromagnetic fields and frequencies. And like, then they'll start realizing it's really the invisible that's affecting them, but the invisible is there. They're just not realizing it's there.
Yeah.
And
so
then
it with me.
Yeah.
All the time. So, wow, this has been an epic call. I think this has been really fun. And I think I like discussing not only like the science, kind of sciencey stuff, but also like broader societal implications. I think anyone who listened to this talk, I would hope gained something really valuable, to them. That's the goal.
Yeah, it is awareness at the end of the day. Like awareness that, one person, like, it's kind of like, I think of like Lord of the Rings, like the quote when it's like Gandalf tells Frodo, even one tiny person can make a difference. It's true, because in your own local world, if you have enough of this information and knowledge, you can then, find a way to pass it on, like a story, analogy, something. You pass it on to somebody else, and then they start thinking about, it's like, maybe this guy isn't totally, maybe there is something I don't know, and I'm willing to admit that, and then start looking on your own. It's like, we're the messengers more than anything.
We're going to do it.